So why are so many marketers spiritual? Have you ever noticed this? I subscribe to a number of newsletters, and more than one of them talks about spiritual stuff that is pretty woo. And I just got off the phone with somebody who not only mentioned his faith to me, which was a surprise, but also talked about energy transfer in networking. And I've noticed this comes up a lot, this idea of energy. And I don't know what the hell they're talking about. Um, and it's not real as far as I know. Um, and I think it's meant in some ways as a metaphor, and a very mini, an analogy, an allegory, whatever you want to call it, for what is actually happening. But it comes across as like spiritual nonsense, and it's strange. And I keep having these experiences where like I understand when they talk tactics and strategy, and I understand why uh, it makes sense, and then they talk about the reasons for why this stuff works, and it's all spiritual woo woo, and it's really strange. And it's not everyone does this. I should note that there are newsletters I've subscribed to where they don't mention this energy transfer at all, but it just feels like there's a lot of people who mention it, and I don't know what to do about it. I'm very polite um, with people I don't, you know, formal maybe is a word I'd use with people I don't know very well, and so I don't stop them and be like, "What are you talking about? Energy transfer? What does that mean?" And certainly the newsletters that mention it, I don't like reply back being like, "What is this bullshit you're talking about? This isn't real." Um, and I think like I'm trying to wonder like trying to think like where does this come from? And I think presumably someone in the like in the coaching world, because the people who've mentioned this are coaches really who've mentioned it, has like has mentioned that like the universe is made of energy or something, and that's where this comes from. And maybe these people are inclined because they're in professional development world, they're inclined to read a lot of self-help, which is often based in like, you know, not science. It's based in like spiritual ideas and mysticism and who knows what. But I just find it very strange. um, I'm an atheist, I guess. I'm really agnostic, but I have to say I'm an atheist because uh, I I have the opinions of an atheist when it comes to the monotheistic religions. Though I also would claim that I have no idea what caused the universe. So like, and I couldn't tell you that, and it would be very stupid of me to believe that I could tell you that. Um, I like to describe myself as agnostic, but I really, you know, I guess I have to like be publicly an atheist because like that's how I feel about when it comes to the monotheistic religions. But like this is not I, being an atheist or agnostic doesn't inform, to the best of my knowledge, how I go about recruiting people or finding future clients or helping people, because that is my goal. I mean, I guess with these coaches in particular, part of this is that they're, you know, there's this the spiritual element because they all say they're trying to help, even though many of them charge exorbitant rates. You know, they mean well and they are trying to help, and so that to justify this whole language of service and assistance and helping, they feel like they need this weird spiritual underpinning. I just like to do it because I like it. Um, and I do, and I like feeling good about myself, you know, and when I help someone and I see them have success because I helped them, I feel good about that. And there's nothing else there, you know, like I don't have to come up with some elaborate pseudo mystical reason why that feels good. It just feels good. And I enjoy doing it when I'm doing it as well. And these things feel good, and I could read some books about why that happens chemically in my body, but I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I don't need this elaborate mysticism underlying it to justify it to me or to anybody else. But moreover, I don't think it's my place when talking to clients or future clients to talk about like those kinds of deeply held beliefs, unless of course I was asked. I'm not gonna to push my beliefs about like the nature of reality on someone when I'm trying to help them figure out how to fix an SEO problem on their website. Why would I do that? But it must work. I don't know if the guy I just spoke to was telling the truth or not, but he made all sorts of claims about money he was making. Lots of big numbers floating around that were supposed to impress me. And I always, first of all, I find all the talk about spiritualism and all the talk about money in Congress, it's funny, but also I guess I find it, so I guess what I'm trying to say is I think I suspect there's inherent guilt that we all feel when we make a lot of money. I've never made a lot of money, and so I don't know that I've ever felt this guilt, but I'm guessing. And so the language of like energy transfer and like putting, the language of the secret and nonsense like that lets people feel better about the fact that they are charging exorbitant amounts of money for what they were doing, or they are maybe, overcharging, under-delivering. And I'm not saying that the people that I'm vaguely referring to in this video are doing that. I don't know enough about what they do. I also feel as though people really, and I'm guilty of this as anybody, but people don't value themselves enough when it comes to many people, not everybody, but many people don't value themselves enough when they're providing services, especially like tailored personal services like I do. I know I'm good at it, but I don't, I still tell myself I'm bad at it, and I shouldn't earn more money because, I can't possibly deserve it. Especially given what I made in my day job. So maybe it comes from those kinds of feelings. I don't know. And whether the feelings are justified or not, they're often not. I guess I'm struggling with this idea that like this is a component of coaching marketers, or coaching coaches, I guess, as well, and coaching service providers and coaching anybody who is doing like business to business. And not everybody does this. I really, really need to emphasize that lots of people don't do it, or there are people who do it, but only occasionally. It comes up only once in a while that you hear a glimpse. And that's going to happen, especially if you work with someone regularly. You'll get a glimpse of what they believe, especially if you have some kind of relationship. It's going to come out, especially if you have a pretty good rapport. But, like, it's just bizarre to me that you would do it like in your first contact with somebody, especially, or in the case of this newsletter I'm thinking of, you do it every day. There's always mentions of it. And I mean that, I guess if like you're trying to attract people with like mind, or people who are attracted to these ideas, which is, God, rough guess, a vast majority of the population of people who are attracted in some way to like, pseudo mystical things that aren't based in reality, because we want to believe in things that don't exist for various reasons. It's a whole other story, I guess. But like, I think that works. It must work if you're putting it out into the world all the time as part of your strategy of attracting people to you to pay you. But like when you're trying to convert somebody, it's weird to bring up, I think. And maybe it's just I'm just in this minority, you know. I like I said, I don't have spiritual beliefs, so I am the very small minority of people, and I guess I am not the target market in that case, even though I was, you know, I was just on this call that was, it wasn't supposed to be a sales call. It turned into a sales call, of course. Um, it was supposed to be a chat, and then I got pitched because that's what happens. And I just like to say that I think that's silly, and like, I think I like this idea. I've been working on this, working with someone who you know, is very much is the idea of like you agree to have the call in which there will be a pitch, and I like that because then both people are on the same page and you're being transparent and you're saying, you know, I'm not going to be shocked or put aback by the fact that you're pitching me because we literally agreed to do that. That's an aside. I just, as part of this pitch, there was talk about energy transfer in networking events, and I was like, I've heard this before. It's bunk. Why does it keep coming up? And it's from, you know, self-help books. Do it all the time. There's so many good self-help books out there where they're like the advice is really good, and then like the underlying rationale for the advice is just woo. And or I think of The War of Art, where like is really practical advice about how to write consistently and you know and just like to really be disciplined, and then there's all this nonsense mysticism around it, and you're like, why can't you just provide the advice without the mysticism? And this is the whole self-help industry, and the coaching industry is full of this stuff, and it's like it must work, right? Because these people sell lots of books and they get lots of clients and they make lots of money, but like it makes no sense to me. It's just mystifying to me. I don't. And the thing is, I think in some cases it's actually just being the energy stuff is just being used as a metaphor or an allegory, because I understand what they're trying to say. There are things people do that are more attractive to other people than other things people do, and this is like a fact of human behavior, you know, that you can behave a certain way to somebody and put them off, and you can behave a different way, and they'll be interested in you. And you can do that with dress, which clearly I don't pay much attention to, and hair again, and that kind of thing as well, makeup, whatever. But none of this means that there's like that you are like understanding energy fields and like putting out positive energy and you know not putting out negative energy or whatever the hell it is that they're talking about. Like none of that is real. You know, it's one thing to admit that the universe is like made up of energy. It's another thing to pretend to know how that works, especially in terms of human interactions with each other. You know, and I mean, there are people who are savants at meeting people and you know and connecting people and stuff like that. And maybe some of this is people trying to explain to other people how that works because they don't know. But I just don't know why language of like mysticism is necessary for this. And I guess that's just the way my brain works. I haven't had a need for it since I was a teenager, I guess, basically. And even then my mysticism was really like dumb, but like rooted supposedly in psychology, or like really early psychology, that I hadn't actually read, but I misinterpreted. That's another story. But like, I just my brain as an adult, I just really have no, it has no appeal for me. This mystical stuff. It's actually off-putting. And when someone starts talking about energy fields and energy transfer, I go, oh, I've got one of these people. And, you know, I overcome this. You know, I've worked with lots of people who believe this stuff. I mean, certainly, if a client of mine believes this stuff, I don't care. I couldn't care less. I want to help the client. I'm not going to tell them what to believe about the world. But I've also worked with people the opposite end, where I was their client, and they believe stuff that I necessarily agree with. It's not like a complete deal breaker. It's more of a like, for me, I gotta like the person first, and I gotta like think that what they're offering is legitimate before I find out about the underlying crazy theories about the world, because that stuff is a real put off to me. And if I hear that before I've had a chance to like the person, then what am I gonna do, right? I'm gonna be like, I can't. I can't abide this. I'm really not into it, because you're talking about like energy rather than like things that are tangible. And to me, it's I want to help people solve actual real world problems. And usually I'm if I am working with a coach or an advisor or somebody like that, or a teacher of some kind, I want them to help me solve actual real world problems. I don't want them to tell me how the you know how we're all connected or whatever, or how we like can put out negative or positive energy into the world and all this stuff. Like, anyway, maybe that's why I'm not very good at parties. I don't know. And I just sometimes, you just hear a word too much, and it becomes like, oh my God, the current word that everyone loves right now in the business to business support world, or whatever you want to call it, the business coaching world, is energy. And there's so much of it everywhere. We've all got it. It's great. It's positive. We just gotta like rub it off on people, apparently. It's a strange world we live in, but what can you do?